And this particular poem, and we were speaking about this earlier, is dedicated to my mother. My mother unfortunately passed away last year, and one of the health issues that she had that kind of plagued her towards the last like few years of her life was her teeth. Specifically, she had a few missing teeth and she had a lot of cavities. But within the grand scheme of all her health issues, the teeth was like the least thing that she had to worry about. And so this was sort of my interpretation of her teeth. And one of the things that I always tell people, I had a nightmares, recurring nightmares for the longest time, from college all the way to I was about 30, of my teeth falling out consistently. And so I think this is a good way to like maybe deal with that. So this first poem is titled Teeth. When my mother would open her mouth, I'd imagine a set of fossils, yellowed and misshapen bones lodged in the velvet desert of her gums. I'd imagine the dentist she visited in Mexico as an archaeologist, who, while staring down, mirror and drill in hand, was unsure how best to clean and dig them out. And I'd imagine that when the monotony and loneliness of cleaning a house became too much, she'd step out onto the porch, light a cigarette, savor each drag. I never found those Camels, Lucky Strikes, Marlboros, never traced anything to a habit other than the faint smell of smoke clinging to her breath. But I wanted to believe she was addicted to the practice, that this and only this was the reason for the rottenness, because what else but her own body's betrayal could cause craters to pockmark her molars, or to flatten her canines, or to coerce her front teeth to begin to disappear, erasing what enamel she had left. When her incisors fell off, and I could no longer imagine that maybe, just maybe, she didn't brush, or that this was some old country curse, a generational spell of cavities and plaque. I'd look away every time she spoke, and without opening my mouth, run my tongue across my teeth, feeling the way I felt during grade school once when outside beside a swing set, a bottom chomper loosened, came off, and all I could think about as I held it in my palm was putting it under my pillow when I got home, hoping that when I woke up in the morning, another tooth, whiter, thicker, no longer crooked, would have sprouted, eager to grow.
Mm. Yeah, I love this poem because it just, you know, I think it also speaks to this broke down your teeth, but also like, I think emotionally, this broken downness and, you know, but also this element of there's this element I think when you're a kid and you start to understand how different your parents are, and you start being like, oh, I don't know if I want to be like that or look like that. And like I feel like that was signaling through the teeth when you look at the teeth and you're like, wow, okay. There's this thing that happens, this seizure maybe as a child when you start to understand your parents are individuals. Um, but yeah, I love it. And I think it's like I think also we have so many complicated relationship with teeth, especially in our society with people doing veneers and all these things, right? And I think teeth signal in our society, in American society particularly, like class. And there's this element of class happening.
Exactly, I agree. Yeah, and I think the irony about this particular poem is that even though my mother, I mean, she would go to, we live on the U.S. Mexican border, and she would go to Mexico sometimes when I was younger to, get some dental work done. But throughout like my childhood, I mean, I was always at the dentist. I never wore braces or anything, but like I had like those silver caps on my teeth and constantly was getting fillings. I mean, on the morning of 9/11, I went to the dentist office, and so it was very surreal to be like, seeing a tragedy unfold and then getting a cavity drilled at the same time. And so it's always been sort of a part of me, I would say, in my childhood as well. But I think you speak about a really good point in terms of like when you start noticing the differences between you and your parents. And I think like for me personally, it was the teeth where I did start noticing like, oh, this almost like defines somebody in a way and it makes them a little bit different than everybody else.
Yeah. How does it feel to, I guess, like, because my question is that you write in your poetry collection, you have poems about your mom and your dad, and like, how does it feel to write about them?
Yeah, I think I I think it's a way to sort of not necessarily process my childhood or process any sort of like trauma or grief or anything, but as a way to sort of give voice to, somebody who might not in another context given themselves a voice. I remember specifically I was teaching, I was a tutor, a third grade tutor at an elementary school during my grad school years. And one of the assignments was the students had to write a poem about Christmas. And we live in the Rio Grande Valley, which is South Texas. I mean, it doesn't snow or anything. And a lot of the students were writing, they had to an assignment where they had to write a poem or a story about the valley, and it was Christmas, and there was a lot of poems about like it snowing and stuff. And I was like, that's not the valley. They're not really like, where are they getting these ideas from where it's snowing and where there's these like big skyscrapers and when their tallest building is like one building. It's like a chase tower. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like maybe I should do this assignment as well and write something that speaks a little bit more truthfully about the area. And then as soon as I started that, I started realizing then I can speak about my family. I mean, obviously I know my family the most, and I can sort of, give them a voice on the page that you're not going to find everywhere else. And I think the more personal it was, the more universal it became. And I was very open about sharing these poems with my mom, with my dad. My mom would joke around. I had a poem about her making tortillas, and she was like, "That's not the way I made tortillas." And so she would kind of like get after me with that poem, but she absolutely loved them. I think when she started reading them, and she purchased every book, even though I gave her some, and she wanted to see herself on that page in a way that she didn't see herself on a day-to-day basis.